Hello folks, this is Simon and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me today. Now what you're watching in the background is footage from Final Fantasy VII Remake's Chapter 1, but on hard mode difficulty. Now I recently captured this particular footage on a live stream I did over at Twitch. So if you want to watch my hard mode playthrough live with, all the warts and all, then please do go and check out my Twitch channel. The link is down in the video description. But what you're going to be getting here on YouTube is a much cleaner approach to hard mode. So all of that footage I'm recording, I'm going to be editing down so that I can explain to you the various strategies and techniques that I use to take on the bosses and some of the difficult encounters all throughout hard mode. So beginning from chapter 1, of course, right up to the end of chapter 18. It's going to be a fun adventure, at least I hope, and hopefully you guys are going to join me for the ride. Since this is captured for my live streams, I don't think it would be fair to go any further here without actually giving a shout out to everybody in live stream chat that's been giving me various tips, strategies, and all of that good and juicy stuff that's going to help us get through some of the tough encounters here. A lot of that I'm going to be putting into use, and a lot of that I'm going to be sharing with all of you who are watching these videos. Now, unfortunately, there's so many tips and juicy bits coming forth from those live stream chats that it's just not really practical for me, I'm afraid, to remember and to keep track of who's giving me what strategies and what techniques and which of those end up getting used here. So that's why I just want to give this big collective shout out to all of you over in live stream chat. Righty-ho then, let's get stuck in, and I'll start by saying that hard mode, the difficulty, is not actually available immediately. You have to complete the game on one of the other available difficulties before you can access it, so they are classic, easy or normal. Now, once you do unlock hard mode, you're not going to be able to access it from the new game option. In fact, once you've completed the game on one of the other difficulties, you're going to gain access to a feature known as Chapter Select. And this is where you can replay any of the chapters that you've already completed, which are chapters 1 through to 18. Now, it's from here, when you select a chapter you want to play through, that you're going to be able to select hard mode difficulty. But one of the good things about the Chapter Select feature is that any part of the game you play having selected a chapter, you're going to retain everything you've already collected up until that point, such as weapons, the upgrades for those weapons, the materia growth, your character's levels and experience. All of that good stuff carries across. Now, of course, your party is generally going to be dictated by the point of the story that you're playing through, but everything that the party members that are available in that party have already gained access to, they will get to keep. So right here in Chapter 1, we currently only have access to Cloud. Barrett will be joining us in a little while, but Cloud, as you can see, has access to all of the materia that we've already found in our previous playthrough, and I can go through and make changes to that as I see fit, along with equipping on him any weapons and any of the upgrades that those weapons have, he will get to keep. Now, here's the thing as well. You can only actually gain access to certain upgrades for various weapons by playing hard mode difficulty, which means if you really want to get the most out of the game in terms of maxing out your character's power and just really boosting your party to the best it can be, you are going to have to play hard mode difficulty. And also, if you want to get the Platinum Trophy for Final Fantasy VII Remake, you are also required to complete all 18 chapters on the hardest difficulty as well. So there's no getting around it if you really want to get the most out of the game, I'm afraid. Okay, so we've started to play hard mode. What is it we're exactly signing up for? Well, obviously, bosses and creatures, they have increased health pools, they output increased damage, the usual stuff that we can expect from a tougher difficulty. However, that's not it. There's a few other things that we really need to be aware of. Number one is that bosses are generally going to have actual new abilities in their arsenal, and you're even going to see this in this particular video when we access the the Scorpion Sentinel fight. Still can't get used to calling it by its new name there. And secondly, something else we're actually going to get an example of with the Scorpion Sentinel boss battle is the fact that current abilities are also going to be upgraded for bosses to make them more dangerous. Not just in terms of the amount of damage they output, but in the actual mechanics of those abilities as well. So you'll see an example of that in due course. And thirdly, and this is a real game changer here, it's going to make you think about how to approach the game completely differently than you did on your previous playthrough, and that's this. Items disabled completely on hard mode difficulty. So not only does this mean you're not going to be casting status effect items or healing items like remedies or the like, but you're not going to be able to cast potions, high potions, elixirs, Phoenix Downs when party members die, and most importantly, and this is most importantly, you're not going to be able to cast MP restorative items such as ethers, turbo ethers. You know, MP, this is the thing with hard mode in comparison to normal difficulty or easy difficulty. MP is going to be like gold dust here. The only way to restore MP in hard mode, there's a couple of ways, but they're few and far between. First of all, by completing a chapter that will restore all party members' HP and MP to full. Second of all, by breaking crates. Crates are going to be your friend in hard mode. They have a chance of restoring small amounts of MP. And third of all, in chapters that have side quests, certain side quests also restore MP. But items do not restore MP because you can't use them. And benches do not restore MP in hard mode either. Benches do restore health, so if you need to heal up, they're great to use, but they will not restore MP. Now, you should still be able to get through some of these opening chapters of hard mode without worrying too much about MP, and I'm going to give you a few workarounds just to help you on your way here as we get into some of the strategies. But this is really going to become a problem, I expect, as we get later on into the game, especially once, you know, we have to get through really lengthy chapters, go through lots and lots of battles with multiple boss fights. Some of those end boss fights we're still going to have to conserve MP for all through the chapters because of healing and, you know, sometimes we need to do damage with magic and what have you. And without MP, that's just not going to be possible. So, yeah, later on, a lot of out-of-the-box type of thinking is going to be required. But hopefully, you know, with my video series, I'm going to have some good strategies and tips to share with you guys. Now, before actually entering hard mode, I would advise that you do a little bit of preparation just in terms of farming for Materia AP and a few levels for your party members. Now, I've come into hard mode about level 43 or 44, I think, in Chapter 1. And a few materia that I farm for, at least initially, for these opening chapters, I'm going to recommend to you guys as well. And they're materia such as the prayer and chakra materias. Now, they are healing materia that don't consume MP. So they are really going to be your friends here. Now, prayer, or pray rather, is a materia that costs, a magic that costs 2 ATB gauges. So you are going to have to, you know, build that up in battle before you can heal with that. But it is an area of effect heal that, as I say, doesn't require MP. And chakra is a self-target heal that only requires a single gauge of ATB. So it doesn't heal the whole party, but it does heal the character that casts it, and it has a cheaper cost. So you'll want to have that leveled and probably have it equipped along with pray on multiple party members. Now, the other materias you're going to want in terms of restorative functions are going to be revive, and revive is a materia that's going to replace Phoenix Downs. And if you can level this up to use Arise so that you can bring party members back to life with full health when they die, then that is going to be a huge whopping big bonus for you as well. And I do recommend having at least 2 revive materias, just so that obviously if the person that has, if you only have one and that person dies, then you're pretty much out of luck at that point. So having 2 will just cover all bases. Now, other materials that you're going to really want to make sure are going to be used frequently on hard mode are purple materials, independent materials. So they're materials such as HP+, MP+, very, very important MP+. Obviously, the more MP you have, the longer you're going to be able to sustain it throughout a chapter. And then abilities, or rather independent materials such as Magic Plus are going to be useful. But then also materia that's unique to the remake that didn't exist in the original game. Materia such as First Strike, for example, being able to enter combat with full ATB so that you can just go ahead and unleash some powerful abilities such as, I don't know, Triple Slash right from the get-go are going to help you on your way, especially early on. In fact, if you've been watching any of the background footage that I've been showing you here, one of the things you'll notice I've been doing with most enemy encounters is just opening with a lot of ATB already filled up because of that First Strike materia, and then just unleashing Triple Slash with Cloud, pretty much decimating everything in our path. And of course, as long as you've upgraded your weapons, which you really should have done, then having that extra magic attack and attack boosts in terms of stats from those weapons is going to help out big time as well. Another materia I strongly recommend, and I recommend at least 2 of these maxed out if possible, is Steadfast Block. And if you equip this on your inactive party members, or those party members that the AI controls, then they're going to build up ATB a lot faster, because the AI in particular does do a lot of blocking. Okay, so blocking is where you would normally hold down R1, I think it is the default, and that allows you to take reduced damage without actually dodging the abilities that are being cast at you. So the AI does this a lot, and that fills up your ATB much quicker. Now, talking of abilities, you do want to spend those ATBs that you're filling up, of course. You really should have access to all, or at least most of them by now. And if you don't, you might want to head back into one of the other difficulties to get the weapons, or just to equip them, to learn them. It doesn't take long to learn a new ability. I think 10 uses of it with the weapon equipped will get it permanently learned. So we'll just focus on Cloud and Barret for this particular video because they are the party members we're going to be controlling. And for Cloud, I'm going to strongly recommend abilities such as Focus Thrust. Staggering enemies in hard mode is going to be a big bonus, a big help, because obviously not only does it knock them out of the fight for a little bit so they can't do damage, but it's also going to be just a fantastic time to really unleash every bit of damage that you can in order to get through the battles as quickly as possible. And of course, because we're not going to be consuming MP, or trying our hardest not to consume MP, at least not until we get closer to the end of the chapters, because we know it's going to be restored shortly after, we are going to be focusing on the main weapon abilities to do the stuff that we need to do. So as I say, yeah, Focus Thrust for Cloud, and also Focus Shot for Barret, so that we can really focus, no pun intended, on getting those enemies staggered. And then abilities for Cloud, such as Triple Slash, as I already mentioned, are going to be extremely useful, especially on the normal enemy encounters. If you can open with a first strike and just unleash a Triple Slash, often I've found just one-shotting through these enemies was possible. And that's obviously going to make things a lot faster. It's going to conserve that MP. And in all honesty, I've found the opening parts of hard mode a little bit easier than my normal mode playthrough because of these extra abilities and strategies we were using. Along with Triple Slash, the other ability that is an ability you're going to want to really get used to with Cloud is Counter Stance. Now, this is an ability I didn't actually start using until the end of my normal mode playthrough. A lot of people in live stream chat recommended it to me. I started using it and I fell in love with it very, very quickly. It is a really, really decent ability. Now, the way Counter Stance works is that for, I think it's 2 seconds after you cast the ability, it puts you into a special guard stance where you're going to take vastly reduced damage. And if you receive an attack from an enemy in this guard stance, you're going to respond with a counter attack. And because it is 2 seconds, it is actually quite a long period of time in order to initiate that counter. So if you're fighting an enemy and you see they have, you know, the name of an ability in red appear above them that they're about to cast, that's when you really want to cast Counter Stance. And then they've got 2 seconds to use that ability, and then you're going to guard against much of the damage and then unleash your own powerful damage afterwards. It's very, very good, and once you get used to using Counter Stance, it's going to pretty much become a bread and butter ability for you when you're controlling as Cloud. And of course, you still want to make good use of Punisher and Operator mode with Cloud. And don't forget, you can still counter in Punisher mode as usual, so you want to make use of that. As for Barret, he tends to be a very tanky character, and you probably didn't use him so much as a tank in normal mode because it wasn't really needed. But now in hard mode, abilities such as Steel Skin and Lifesaver, I believe it's called, are going to come into their own as well. And don't forget, Barret has some very damaging abilities, such as Maximum Fury. But also, don't neglect some of Barret's abilities that you've learned from some of his melee weapons. Now, I'd imagine that most of you are going to be playing Barret, at least mostly, as a ranged character. At least that's what I'm going to be doing. But those melee abilities are very, very powerful, especially when a foe has been staggered. You can slam down with an uppercut or something and just do tons of damage. So yeah, just don't forget about those. So in terms of specific strategies now for this particular chapter, well, the first thing to note about chapter 1 is you can be a little bit more liberal in terms of your MP consumption. Now, by the end of this chapter, I pretty much still had close to full MP. So there's not a whole lot in terms of the amount of battles you're going to be undertaking in comparison to later chapters. And as long as you've got a decent selection of MP plus, or MP up materia rather they're called, equipped on your party members, then yeah, don't be scared to use a few spells every now and then. Now, I've got Cloud equipped with the Twin Stinger, mostly because of the fact it just has a raw strength to it in terms of physical attack. It's very, very powerful. And if you compare this with something such as the Champion Belt, you're going to be doing a ton of damage with Cloud's strikes. Now, in terms of materia, the 2 elements you are going to want to focus on are going to be fire and lightning. First of all, the enemies here are humanoid and mechanical, which means that they have a natural weakness to fire and lightning elements. But on top of that, fire and lightning are 2 of the most powerful green magics because, as far as I know, they are pretty much not dodgeable. So whereas magic such as wind or blizzard, the enemy can move away from those after you've cast them. With fire and lightning, they cannot. Now, even if you're not going to be casting fire and lightning because you want to conserve MP, then you can still pair them with elemental materias just to boost the amount of damage that you're going to be doing with your physical attacks or guarding against those elements when the enemies cast them. So obviously for the guard Scorpion, done it again, the Scorpion Sentinel, having lightning paired with elemental materia in armor is going to reduce the amount of damage that you take from various attacks. However, if you're not going to be scared to use a little bit of MP, then a good combination you can use is fire with magnify. But here's a tip that chat shared with me, and it's one I'm going to share with you. It is very, very helpful. When using damaging elemental spells, you're probably better off not using the highest form of those magics. So Fire Guard, for example, it costs a lot of MP. I think it's like 22 MP or something. And once you've got a high magic stat, the amount of extra damage that you're going to be doing with that level 3 spell is kind of negligible. And many of the enemies, at least the normal enemies, are going to be getting one-shots with a high magic stat, even if you're only casting a level 1 or level 2 version of the spell. So having something like Fire plus Magnify is great, and it's going to help you out a lot in some of the standard battles where you're fighting against the Shinra soldiers. But just stick with casting Fire 1 or Fire 2 if necessary, or Fire as it's known as in this game. And you're probably still going to one-shot them, or at least almost kill them, but whilst also being able to conserve that precious MP. Of course, you can go for the standard healing magnify combination, or if you're taking a lot of a particular type of damage from a boss, such as magic damage, then having the barrier materia paired with magnify for mana ward all is certainly useful. But on top of that, just go for the materials I've already mentioned to you, such as chakra, prayer, first strike, and all of the stat boosting materials as well. Okay, so you've made your way down to the Reactor Core. What can you now expect from the Scorpion Sentinel Boss? Well, the first thing you're going to notice is that you can no longer select the 30-minute timer. Only 20 minutes is an available option. But that's fine. It's still absolutely plenty of time, just as it was on normal mode. The boss itself is a really fun one, I've got to say. It's a good introduction to hard mode, but not so difficult that it's going to have you absolutely pulling your hair out. But you do want to stay on top of the HP levels for both Cloud and Barret, otherwise you are going to be using that revive materia. Now, I actually managed to get through the encounter without any deaths here on my first attempt, so it is possible, and I did also go in with a less than ideal setup, mostly because of the fact I didn't sort materia out before the cutscene triggered. Bit of a dumb thing to do, but it does show there's a little bit of leeway here in these earlier chapters. Now, something to have equipped which is going to help you is lightning elemental combination. Now, you can have that on your weapon, in which case you're just going to deal more damage, which is obviously a good thing, or you can have it on your defense. There are various abilities that the Scorpion Sentinel uses that are lightning based. So these abilities are Tail Swipe, Scorpion Strike, and EM Field. Now, the thing with all of these abilities is you can actually dodge them. So, yeah, whether you actually want to have lightning to tied to your armor rather than your weapon for extra damage always depends on just, you know, how lazy you want to be in terms of dodging damage, which you really should be doing anyway. Now, one magic I would recommend equipping for this fight as well is Fire Magic, and I'll explain why in a moment. But one of the rare uses of MP consumption for me in this battle is actually casting fire. Now, we're just going to go through the initial encounter here, or the initial start of the encounter, as we normally would. We're going to just unleash some abilities, we're going to dodge attacks, we're going to try and conserve MP, so make sure to cast Prey or Chakra as need be in order to stay on top of those HP totals. Having HP ups equipped is obviously a nice way of boosting your HP stats so that you take less percentage damage overall. Now, once you stagger the boss, you're only going to have a very short window of opportunity to make the most of the increased damage that you get from a stagger, because shortly after the stagger is when you're going to trigger the next phase. And this is going to happen frequently throughout the fight. You'll stagger the boss, you'll have maybe a couple of seconds to get some damage in, and then, you know, the stagger's going to end prematurely. Okay, right then, so now we have the shielder. And what's going to happen here is we need to get behind the boss, just as we did in normal mode, in order to damage the field generator. Now, you can do this with physical attacks, but if you're not lined up correctly and your physical attack hits the actual shield rather than the field generator, then you're going to bounce back. It's going to slow you down. It's going to be a nuisance all around. But you remember I told you to equip that fire magic? Yeah, this is why. In my opinion, fire works wonders here. So a single cast of the first level of fire, maybe 2 casts of it, should pretty much get rid of that shield altogether. If it doesn't, then maybe follow it up with just a couple of physical attacks from Cloud or from Barret. But yeah, don't try and hit that field generator with lightning because it is immune to lightning, so it's not going to help you. But fire, of course, is still an instant cast, as in it's not going to be dodged or anything, and it is going to get rid of that shield nicely. Okay, right, so then we're going to start meeting some of the Scorpion Sentinels' new abilities, on top of the fact it's also going to be constantly plummeting us with its previous abilities, such as that EM field. As soon as you see EM field, just dodge out of the range of it as fast as you can, because it does do a heck of a lot of damage, I've got to say, if you manage to get caught in it. Now, when the boss is in this pressured state, it's worth just going ahead and casting the focused abilities, so that's Focus Thrust with Cloud and Focus Shot with Barret. And the trick is you want to try and get the boss staggered as quickly as possible in order to push it into its Phase 3 mode. So there we can see that the barrier is up again. The longer that you spend in Phase 2, the more often, of course, you're going to see, this barrier. But that ability there, the Scorpion Strike, that is a new ability for hard mode. And he basically spams the ground behind him with his tail. And it is very nasty. If you get caught in it, it does a lot of damage. So as soon as you see that Scorpion Strike, just back away and try and either get in front of the boss or just get at range from the tail, because it is a melee ability, fortunately, but it does hit hard. Okay, so we've got the shield up right now, which means that we need to, once again, just unleash a fire or two on that field generator. Make sure you do target the field generator. But as you can see, it's no big deal as long as you do that. It does come off quite quickly. Oh, and one other tip for you. Make sure you have Cloud's Limit Break Ascension equipped, and hopefully you'll build this up throughout the encounter by just taking damage and that you don't avoid. Now, if Ascension is available to you, if you've built the limit gauge enough throughout the course of the encounter, don't use it. You'll probably be tempted to, especially if you stagger the boss, for example, going into Phase 3. You might be tempted to unleash Ascension then. Hold off, okay? Ascension is going to be absolutely invaluable at the very end of the fight, so just keep hold of it. But just be aware that it is something that you would perhaps like to have built up ready for the final phase. Now, Phase 2 will continue pretty much as it is doing here. Just keep damaging the boss as you get opportunity to, until eventually you push him into Phase 3. And you'll know when that happens because he'll jump to the platform and begin with unleashing the tail laser. So you'll already be familiar with the tail laser because the Scorpion uses it on the previous difficulties. But be warned, it does receive a bit of an update here, which can surprise you if you're not expecting it. And that is this. On the previous difficulties, he casts it one time, and then he might cast it again later in the fight, but each time he does use it, he'll only use it once. Now, in hard mode, he'll use it twice, which means you'll need to make use of both of the pieces of debris that have fallen to the ground in order to survive it. So once he uses tail laser, run behind the debris. Once he's destroyed it, quickly run to the other debris in order to wait for the second cast. I do have to say, it's really kind of the Scorpion to provide us with that debris, giving us a means to actually avoid his most damaging attack. Now, he is going to cast tail laser probably multiple times throughout Phase 3 before you manage to actually get his health low enough to push him into Phase 4. But so long as you're paying attention, then you can continue to avoid the tail laser, along with pretty much all of the boss's damaging abilities. Now, the final challenge comes as the boss enters Phase 4. This is what I like to call the healing phase. It's where he begins the repair process and starts regenerating his HP back. And he can actually regenerate it quite a lot. It's really annoying. So the ability does exist in normal mode, but the amount he heals is far more now than it was back then. So the way you can do this, or stop him from healing, is by destroying his legs. Now, if you're not outputting a huge amount of damage, by the time you've destroyed his legs, his HP can be well back up there, and you've got the whole bulk of the fight ahead of you again. Yeah, it wasn't that bad on normal mode. But what I'm going to strongly recommend is making sure that you've saved that Ascension until this point, and this is where you want to unleash it. So as soon as you can target his legs, target one of them, and that should pretty much finish him off. At least it did for me here. A single Ascension cast the moment he went into Phase 4 was enough to completely obliterate the boss and finish off the encounter. So I didn't have to worry about that healing problem at all then. And hopefully, as long as you manage to retain your focus throughout the battle, then you should be able to get through relatively unscathed. So I hope you managed to do so. If you do, let us know in the comment section. Did you get through the battle with the Scorpion Sentinel? Okay, and did you have any deaths? I actually managed to keep both Cloud and Barrett alive throughout the fight, which I am very proud of. But I'm sure, you know, as this is only Chapter 1, I'm not going to be alone in that. Okay, so after the fight, we're going to proceed through exiting the Mako reactor before it explodes within a 20-minute timer. Pretty much the same as on normal mode. The enemies at this point are identical to the enemies that we fought coming into the reactor, apart from the shock troopers, which we begin to engage with towards the final part of the dungeon. And the shock troopers are not easy, okay? They weren't easy on normal mode, they're not easy on hard mode. And there are going to be 2 encounters that involve these shock troopers. The first of which is the easiest of the 2, since it's a single shock trooper by himself with no other enemies. Now, here's the thing. Because we are so close to the end of this chapter, it's at this point that we do not need to be scared about our MP usage. Okay, so just start unleashing everything that you want to do in order to get through these fights at this point. And what I'm going to recommend for the shock trooper is fire magic. Fire magic is very powerful against them, and if you can have both Cloud and Barrett unleashing it, along with, you know, the usual repertoire of damaging abilities, such as triple slash, counter stance, maximum fury, etc., then you are going to make short work of him. Now, the second encounter is a little bit more challenging, because not only do you have an extra shock trooper, so there's 2 of them, and even one can be quite challenging, but there's 2, you also have the Sentinel machine gun thingies, the sentry rays, that are shooting at you from above. So Barrett will need to take care of those probably. However, again, I'm going to recommend using fire magic here. This is like the final encounter, so you can really just unleash absolutely everything at your disposal. And if you can have fire tied to magnify materia, then just unleash multiple area of effect high level fire spells, and you're going to make very short work of this enemy encounter. But also make sure you stay on top of your HP levels, because these shock troopers, they can do a lot of damage in very short order. And if you're below 50% health and one decides to pounce on you, then you can pretty much be decimated and just, you know, be left thinking, what the heck happened then? So yeah, just pay attention to that. But a couple of fire alls or fire magnifies should pretty much see you through the encounter fairly quickly. And you should really be able to brute force your way through this encounter in relatively quick order. But if you are struggling, if you just can't quite make it, then you might just need to take a step back, as you probably will often need to do so in hard mode when things aren't going your way, and just think of some extra strategy that could help you, you know, a little bit more defensively so that you can get through. In that case, barrier materia, just make sure you have that equipped, and then use some of Barrett's tanking abilities, some of his defensive abilities such as Steel Skin and Lifesaver, as Cloud just, you know, unleashes havoc amongst them. But you shouldn't have too much trouble with it, to tell you the truth. And there we have it. That'll get us through Chapter 1. And that means that we've completed the first of 18 chapters on hard mode difficulty. So massive congratulations to those of you that have managed to get through this. Do share in the comments what you thought of Chapter 1 on hard mode. You know, I really enjoyed that Scorpion Sentinel Boss. I thought it was a lot of fun on this difficulty, and it's really got me excited for what lies ahead here. By the way, one thing I should have mentioned is that once you've defeated Scorpion Sentinel, you actually get an item called the Sharpshooter's Companion Volume 4, which is a manuscript that's going to be used by Barrett in order to give him some extra skill points for his weapon. Now, these manuscripts are given at the end of hard mode bosses, and once you defeat them, and they are going to be the only ways to upgrade your weapons to level 6. So if you don't do hard mode, the most you can do is get enough SP to level weapons to 5. So, as I said earlier, if you really want to get the most out of your party, get it as powerful as it can be, then hard mode is going to be your ticket to do that. But there we have it then, guys. So I'm going to be back next time as we start making our way through Chapter 2. And Chapter 2 is a fun one. There's a lot of tough battles in that. Not necessarily anything in terms of bosses like the Scorpion Sentinel, but just some of the standard enemies there are thoroughly relentless. They really are. So I hope you guys will look forward to it. I've been Simon, your host for today. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and hit that like button if you want to see more content like this. But this has been episode 1 of our hard mode playthrough. I'll see you next time. Take care.